So let's start with an easy one. There is 1 month, February, which has 28 days usually, and in a leap year has 29. Of the other 11 months, how many of them have 30 days? There was a very unusual town in which everything was covered in black. Everything, I mean the roads, the walls, the floors of buildings, every single thing was painted in black. Windows in shops were painted black. How anybody lived there, I don't know. But anyway, it was painted black, everything. And all the street lights were broken. Not a single one of them worked. And a man who was blind was wishing to cross a road in this town where everything's painted black. Unfortunately, he was also covered in a black cloak covering his body and right up over his head. He was using a stick to help him, but it was painted black also. And he listened at the side of the road, thinking, I'll be able to hear whether it's safe to cross. Unfortunately, nobody had told him that all the cars in this town are electric and make virtually no sound. So he didn't notice that there was a car approaching. This car had no lights on. The driver was approaching as the man stepped across the road, but the driver stopped the car, waited for the man to cross, and then drove on. Question is, how did he manage to see him in this strange town? I possibly need you to consider that you've jumped to a conclusion if you don't see it straight away. The next one is a murder mystery, which I have to admit, I was told 4 times by a student in a Newbury school before I realised what was going on. I always give the advice, assume that you just didn't hear something that matters and ask for it to be told again. So that's what I did. And on the 4th time, it became obvious. So see if you can beat me. There was a murder in a sauna. And this sauna was in a sports centre in Austria, up in the mountains at a ski resort. The date was the 10th of January. And the resort sauna was quite high up, 2,500 feet up, in the highest centre of its kind. When the sauna was opened as part of the sports complex, the gentleman who opened it walked back down the corridor and past a man who was making his way down to use the sauna. The attendant then went back to the office, was about to do some other items after a few minutes, but realised he'd forgotten to adjust a setting in the sauna, so decided to walk back. By the time he got to the sauna, he was shocked to find that the man he'd passed was now lying dead with a hole in his chest. His heart had been punctured by some round-shaped object that had pierced it and caused him to bleed to death. Immediately he raised the alarm, and as luck would have it, the culprits, the only people who could have done this, were caught. They had been unable to escape because their exit was blocked by a vehicle delivering some supplies. Trouble was, when they were questioned and searched, it became impossible to prove how they did it. So they were searched and found only 3 items were found on them, 1 each. The first person had a towel and a mobile phone. The second person had also their towel and a book. The assumption was maybe there was a weapon hidden inside the book. But actually, no, it was an ordinary book, nothing untoward at all. The third person had a metal flask about 15 centimetres long, a foot long. And this flask, when it was searched, unfortunately, was empty. Therefore, the mystery is, where is the weapon? Obviously, the place was searched. They even stripped off all the wood and everything they could. The simple fact is, your puzzle is, how is it possible in Austria, in a sauna, on the 10th of January, to stab a person through the chest, causing them to bleed to death in the sauna, and have a weapon to do this, which simply vanishes off the face of the earth? So the 28 days, I'm sure you've worked it out by now. All the other 11 months have 30, Some obviously only have 30, some have 31, but you can't have 31 unless you've got 30. So it's a silly question, really. You could also ask how many months have 28 days? Well, they all do. The town, well, ridiculous town really, painted black all over the place. But the point is, it's very easy when you hear that to not realize you've been tricked. When I say all the streetlights in the town were broken, a lot of people jump to the conclusion, without ever consciously thinking it, that it must be nighttime. But of course, I didn't say it was nighttime. Therefore, it wasn't nighttime, it was bright daylight, in which case the driver of the car had absolutely no problem seeing the person trying to cross the road. As for the sonar, well, this again is about picking out the key points. In my case, I asked it to be repeated 4 times before I noticed it. But if I highlight the key points, it's not a sauna by accident. That's a hot place. It's not Austria up in the mountains. I made that to make it a little easier, actually, because that's a very cold place. So what object could make a circular hole in someone's chest and then vanish? Well, an icicle. Because an icicle can be brought in that flask, placed on the man's chest, pointing down, hammered in with the metal flask, and then simply rested on the hot coal, the hot stones, I should say, of the sauna. In which case, it will cease to be an icicle, it will become merely water vapor and have effectively vanished.